Right, well, crayfish in the UK seem to be finding themselves into more and more of our lakes and ponds, etc. The lake I'm currently fishing at the minute as well has got a few in. It's right by the river, and it seems to be the lakes that are near rivers that had more in than others. They're also a problem in France, or anywhere we go abroad, like they can be an issue. So what's the best way to combat them? Right, so what are they going to do? We're obviously going to eat your bait. So what you don't want them to do is eat your hook bait. So let's look at ways to avoid them eating your hook bait. Now, where I'm fishing at the moment, like I say, there's crays in here. Even though we're in the winter, they've still been active. So what I've been doing, during the day it's fine to fish with a normal bait, but I've had to fish with rubber at night. So, and the other thing I do, again, whether it be abroad or the UK, avoid tungsten components. I don't know why, but for whatever reason they love it. So things like if I'm using a weight, I'll just use one of our quick change weights, purely because if I put tungsten on there, they're going to chip away at it. Same as even like I like our flippers that we do in tungsten, but again, I'll just use the standard ones, so they're not going to mess around with my rig too much. Like I say, with the plastic baits, it's exactly the same. They might have a little go at it. In fact, I don't know if you can see that. That's one, not from the UK, but there's a boilie I've used. You can just see they do have a go at it. But that said, I'm fishing. You know, with a rubber bait like that, I know I'm fishing. If that was a boilie, that would probably just come back as a bare hair. So I'd much rather be fishing with a piece of rubber than not having any bait at all. So there is other ways you can combat it. You can look at obviously wrapping baits in mesh. Mesh doesn't seem to take too much. It's all right for things like poussin and chat, which are the little French catfish, but for crays they do seem to find their way through it, and you end up with a kind of a bit of a tangled mess. And the other thing you don't want with mesh is if they're messing around with your rig, is your hook can often get caught in a piece of the mesh, and again, you're not fishing. So that's one of the things you can do. Shrink wrap's not a bad option. Again, if you're insistent that you must have an actual bait, then shrink wrap's quite a good way to go. But like I say, for me, rubber baits are good. The other thing is they will take on some flavour. Not convinced how long it lasts, but all my baits, all my rubber baits that I use, I keep them in little tubs, and I basically I use like the mainline bait sprays and stuff like that, just to keep them flavoured up. Even neat flavouring's a good little tip on them as well. Just pour it in, doesn't matter what sort of amount it is. They can only take on so much of it anyway, so you're never going to be able to overdo it on a hook bait. But like I say, I tend to keep different colours in different pots, but I do use a lot of it. Right, so what I'll do is I'll just show you how I would attach this to the rig. So you can see the rig I'm using now, just on a little micro hook ring swivel. So I'm just taking a bit of bait floss. I might have to grab my glasses for this one because age and that, I'm getting a little bit old for all this. So the eyesight's going. So we're going to slide that through there, thread that on. Okay. So I do like to use Kong, rubber Kong. Like I say, boilies I've done very well. I've had fish to over 40 pounds in the UK on rubber boilies. So again, it gives you, once you've been out there and used them, it does give you a lot of confidence. You just need an initial bite or two of them and you think, yeah, do you know, and they do work. Okay, so, and this is how I've actually been fishing on the lake. I'm fishing on, but only at night time. Been setting them up. Daytime, they don't seem to be too much of a problem, the old crays. So I'm going to thread on a bit of floss as if you're going to blob and burn it. I've been sticking a few maggots in my rig like most people do these days. I just need to use my blade needle to get that out. Rubber maggot that's tried to escape. And what I'm doing is I'm just overhand knotting it into position. So straight through the middle of the rubber bait. Pull it quite tight. Now, if anything does decide that it wants to come along and try and make my rig a mess or have a go at it, then just cut them ends off. Then hopefully, like I say, I've never had a problem with this, so just give that a little burn to make it into a little blob. Like with that on there, they're not pulling that out, and they shouldn't show it too much attention anyway. Like I say, sort of in the worst places I've fished, they might have a go at plastic. A lot of the time I don't find they have a go at it at all. So really good option in the UK. Again, you can still bait with corn, etc. they're obviously going to take some of it away. They're going to eat some of it, just like they will do the maggots. But generally, even if they clean a bit of your spot out, you've always got a baited rig out there. So that would be my main tip on there. The other thing to think about is your rig itself. Like I say, steer away from anything tungsten, but ideally use some kind of stiffish hook link material. So as you can see on there, I've got a semi-stiff coated braid. Okay, I may go down to a soft, but ideally semi-stiff, stiff, or even make yourself some booms. If you're a real fan of the boom and want a stiff boom section, then better still, it doesn't matter how much they mess around in a rig, they're not going to tangle that up, so you know you're still going to be fishing. Like I say, there is lots of other options, but for me that's probably the best one. Yeah, there's a lot of them now in the UK, and they have become a problem, and you've got to deal with it. Like I say, nothing worse than not fishing. So yeah, hopefully that'll take you somewhere towards fishing with a Crazy present.